guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
It's a scoop session with Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. Also, happy Reckless Speculation Thursday to all who celebrate. And we already welcomed Declan back on Purple Daily, but welcome back. Declan is a married man. He's back from his mini moon.
Still happily married,
Caesars.
Declan?
Still, yeah, yes. Still
All right,
happily married.
All right.
Still,
she hasn't changed her mind or anything. That's good. All right.
No, no prenup has been signed yet, so we'll see what happens there. Though I'm not sure.
So Dex is back. We'll definitely be ramping the Score North Twin Show back up too for the second half of the season. So we got Trevor Plouffe Tuesday on a Thursday today, so check that out. But Doogie, let's start here with Vikings. Whether it's your conversation with Josh Metellus earlier this week, or TJ Hawkinson on the Barstool Bussin' with the Boys podcast, or there's other examples, it feels like JJ McCarthy's Vikings teammates are all raving about him. His work ethic, his leadership, his maturity, his grind, some of his arm traits and strengths. Now, obviously, like, Metellus is a Michigan guy, and I doubt that you're going to have Vikings players trashing the new guy, but it feels like he's generating a lot of positive commentary from the people in the room behind the scenes going into training camp next week.
Well, I'll even tell you, Phil, on background, those who have been in these JJ McCarthy workouts at Woodbury High School the last couple weeks have raved about him. You talk to some people close to Adam Thielen. Adam has been impressed with JJ. You think about his background, wins a national championship at IMG Academy, wins a national championship at Michigan. You talk to folks in the Chicago area before he transitioned to IMG Academy. You talk to people in Ann Arbor. It is really hard, Phil, right? Like, I lean on a lot of people. You hear a lot of stuff on background. I may not be big on, like, ripping a guy anonymously, citing some anonymous source. But in this case, I'm telling you, going back to April, Phil, I've not heard anything bad about JJ McCarthy. Now, that doesn't suggest he's starting week 1 at the New York Giants. In fact, Sam Darnold, I'm positive Sam Darnold is starting week 1. Yes, we'll see how the next 5-6 weeks play out in Egan. But it is going to be, who knows, maybe it's a full redshirt year for JJ McCarthy. But everything I've heard has excited a lot of people in Egan and elsewhere, certainly thinking about 2025 and beyond.
So, Dukes, it certainly seems like people who are in the inner sanctum of the Vikings are talking about the fact that the plan, very well, at least for the early portion of the season, could be Darnold starts, Mullens is the backup, and McCarthy, to use your redshirt analogy, is the third guy. But I've begun to broach this as a cautionary tale about that. I think that if McCarthy impresses in training camp, I don't think there's any way in hell he starts, because I'm with you. I think Darnold starts. But if McCarthy impresses in training camp, I'm not so sure he wouldn't be the backup, because I don't know that you're going to purposely hold him back on your stance of how it should be if he begins to check the boxes that we've talked about that O'Connell has. And O'Connell clearly has some type of plan for McCarthy. So I think where we're a little quick to assume is that McCarthy for sure is going to open the season as the 3. I think that's what has to play out on the field starting next Wednesday when training camp practices begin.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Now, if I had to bet right this second, I think Mullens is the 2 week 1 against the Giants. But if JJ shows enough, right, the next few weeks, sure, your scenario then, Judd, plays out. You then attempt to recoup because you're down some draft picks in 2025. Could you get like a conditional 6th that maybe is a 7th, some late Saturday pick, right? But if you can move Nick Mullens, if JJ McCarthy demonstrates enough the next handful of weeks, to me, you need to strike on a trade, right? If that opportunity presents itself, you need to move Nick Mullens. But I'm just telling you right now, as we sit here on July 18th, my bet is on Nick Mullens being the number 2 week 1.
Listen, I am a Darnold defender. You might call me the lead Darnold defender here. I think the fact that he was so highly touted coming out of USC, and then he winds up in one of the most train wreck situations a franchise can put a young quarterback in. I think there's a there. Can you undo some of the bad wiring? But, that bad wiring exists. And I would think that Doogie, part of the look ahead here with the quarterback situation is, hey, we're all hopeful that Sam Darnold can do what people thought he was going to do 5 years ago and put up some big numbers and maybe have a Baker Mayfield resurgence. But there's also a chance that he's just still Sam Darnold that we know, who throws interceptions and whatnot. If he comes stumbling out of the gate in week 1, 2, and 3, and he's throwing interceptions and he's seeing ghosts, you got to be prepared for fans and media to be calling for a quarterback change. I'm assuming that they're thinking ahead in that regard, that it's not just, okay, Sam Darnold, and we can slot him in for the first 10 weeks confidently.
Sure. So that's where, to me, Mullens offers you a little bit of security.
Yeah.
That you don't need to then rush. Now, hey, the chatter would be loud, right? If that plays out where Darnold fails miserably weeks 1 through 3, trust me, the screams will be loud, right? I mean, they will be really, really loud, right? I mean, a scream is loud, right? But I'm talking overly loud that, hey, JJ needs to get in immediately. But the Vikings have this plan in place. They do not want to rush him. I'm positive of that. So he has to demonstrate that he is 100% ready. The Vikings, I feel confident saying this, when they turn to JJ, they want to make sure that they don't need to turn back. Now, hey, could it play out that way, that he stinks? I suppose, right? But the idea is, once you turn to JJ McCarthy, JJ is this team's quarterback for the foreseeable future. So, yes, Nick, to me, offers that sort of, he's a nice backup in that scenario where Sam does fail. Now, hey, the Vikings will tell you, Phil, they'll spew it on Monday when we talk to Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, Kevin O'Connell, that Sam Darnold has never had this sort of infrastructure.
They're right.
He just hasn't. When talking about the O-line, left tackle, right tackle, the receivers in place. Yeah, it's unfortunate he won't have TJ Hawkinson early in the season. But that with the play calling, the coaching, that it's next level compared to what he's had previously. That he has every opportunity to not fail early in the season.
I think Mullens, if they do go into week 1 with the depth chart going Darnold, Mullens, McCarthy, I think the only way Nick plays is if Darnold gets hurt because of this. If you are willing to your point, if Darnold struggles and everyone's like, you got to make a change, and inevitably it's going to be McCarthy. It's not going to be like, we want Nick Mullens. If you are willing to put up with that and tune that out, which, by the way, if you are, kudos. I think you would stick with Darnold and let him go down with the ship.
You're probably right.
Because if you go to Mullens,
you convinced me on that. Yeah,
it ain't a great switch. And second of all, I think you're creating more questions about, is JJ that bad? Can he not? So I would almost prefer to allow Darnold to play it out as long as you think he needs to, and Mullens is literally in a glass case, and you only break that glass if you are absolutely certain that the fire is raging and Darnold gets hurt.
Yeah, you sold me on it. You're right, Judd. Yeah, I mean, Darnold, Phil, how bad would Darnold need to be, right? If there's any sort of just, okay, there's a throw here, a throw there that we can point to and say, okay, that's positivity. Justin is still putting up pretty good numbers. Jordan, hopefully Jordan is okay and ready to contribute and build upon his very productive rookie year. To me, I think, Judd, you've convinced me on that. So I think Sam would have to fail so badly, or more likely would have to get hurt for us to see Nick week 4 or week 5.
Hey, let me ask you this, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but you've talked to, whether it's Metellus was a Michigan man under Jim Harbaugh and McCarthy. I've heard, Alex Boone, our good buddy, talks for years about just how great Jim Harbaugh is as a culture builder in college, running a more pro-style practice and system. What is it about Michigan and Jim Harbaugh that you think, or from what you've heard, has prepared JJ McCarthy more than some other quarterbacks?
Well, I mean, I think it's all of that, right? I mean, it's the one-on-one tutoring, Jim with JJ, all the extra work, right? Like convincing him, okay, you do need to spend upwards of 10, 11, 12 hours here at the facility, right? When you're not in class, like you should be here. It's not at your apartment. It's doing everything you can to become the best version of yourself. That Jim does a really good job with that. I mean, I think it's what you just laid out. It's very much a pro program, or at least the way that Jim ran it in Ann Arbor. Can't speak for the new coach, although, the fact that he comes in underneath Jim, you would think things will run, pretty similarly. But I'm just saying the way Jim runs things, it was like he was coaching the 49ers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just the way it was. And so with Jim's quarterback background, right, just JJ, Jim, just they meshed very, very well.
Let's talk about Jordan here, because you brought up the Addison situation, the DWI, which we now think he might have been high on pot or smoking pot and fall asleep. Well, and I think I think there's some confusion here, Dukes. Number one, like I'm seeing reports now that because he wasn't arrested, it looks like now he was detained.
Well, cite and release. I mean, that's a California thing. Yeah,
exactly right.
At least on your own cognizance. Yeah, I mean, so he was never officially booked.
Right.
That's why there's no mug picture or anything like that, mugshot.
Right, but I think what's important here to point out is, and it's what you said when you joined us on Tuesday, that he might not be in as much trouble as we thought. We don't know yet there. But what you said on Tuesday, I thought was a very telling part of the story that shouldn't be dismissed. And that was, you used the words that there were a lot of people with the Vikings very pissed off because coming on the heels of Kyrie Jackson, coming on all that. So, yes, Addison might dodge, he might get cited here. He might get in some trouble. We don't know. But I don't think that mitigates or changes what you said on Tuesday, which is the perception of this thing and anyone from that team putting themselves in danger, which, by the way, sleeping in an active lane in Los Angeles is. I don't think that changes the fact that the team is livid and that still is going to weigh in on that this kid has to mature, and this is a real concern.
Yes. Although if you're the Vikings, do you have less Pico? Others just spend more time with him, right? Like, how much are you going to punish him? Are you going to take away reps early in camp? Like, how does that situation play out? But
Great
yes,
question.
No doubt in my mind, there are a lot of people, especially in the heels, as you laid out, on the heels of what took place with Kyrie Jackson, a lot of people just shaking their head, right? After he drives over 100 miles an hour down 94 a year ago, right? Just people just wondering what the heck is going on. But sure, from a legal standpoint, like the right attorney can probably get him, whatever, the minimal penalty is. Like the right attorney in Southern California can probably take care of that. But yeah, the fallout here in Eagan when he gets to town, this weekend into next week for that conditioning test next Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see how that plays out. But I don't know. Is it just that much more mentoring, talking to the right people? I'm telling you, less Pico and others, right? Do you bring in even some outside help, some counseling? Or, is it hey, tough love? I don't know what that looks like, right? How do they internally handle that? What sort of punishment is there? But I can just, absolutely. I'll piggyback on what I said on Tuesday, that there are a lot of people very, very, very frustrated.
Yeah, I wonder what the tone's going to be. KOC and Kwesi will speak to the media it'll be 2 days before the first training camp practice. So it's Monday those guys speak. And that's kind of they're setting the tone publicly for media, fans, but also for players, because this is the first public address after the 6-week layoff or whatever. And with all that has happened since they last had an OTA or minicamp practice, I'm really curious to see what the tone of both Kwesi and KOC is going to be on Monday, Dukes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very curious. Now, publicly, it may be not necessarily kumbaya, but hey, first and foremost, I mean, the grieving process after losing Kyrie, then inevitably the questions will transition to Jordan, or maybe even Kevin or Kwesi addresses Jordan before questions even take place. But yeah, I don't know if they're going to go all in on all that frustration on Monday, right? I think they'll be very careful with their words. I mean, we know, trust me, there will be, before they talk to us at, 12:15 on Monday, whether it's, 2 hours prior, 3 hours prior, people with the Vikings, Jeff Anderson and others will sit down with Kevin, with Kwesi. They will lay out exactly, they will script essentially how they're going to answer these questions, right? They know what questions are coming. Right. And so it's not going to be any sort of surprise. So they will have a plan in place, but I guess I'll be surprised, Phil, if publicly they go all in on how pissed off they are with the Jordan Addison situation.
Yeah, I think that they won't, but I think the key thing to get across to the public is the concern about this thing. And to go back to, Jordan's a very talented guy. He's a very talented player and should have a long, great career. But we've all seen guys sabotage that before. And so you bring up a good point. Do you take away reps? If you do, does he care? You got to do something that he cares about. Because, God forbid, in his case, you go from going 140 miles per hour on 94 to falling asleep in a lane, in Los Angeles. The third time might not be a ticket. It might not be, so that's the thing is, how do you, and that has to be the most frustrating thing, especially in football, because the rosters are so damn big. How do you get the message through, and how do you get it through in a way that, forget the public and us, how do you get it through in a way that the kid cares about, where he takes it seriously?
I mean, they make it so easy to find a car service. I mean, it couldn't be any easier. Even Metellus told me when he was in Southern California recently, he literally didn't drive. He had a car service the whole time, right? And that wasn't necessarily because he was partying, right? And then had to call the number that the teams, make available to these guys. It was just, he doesn't like to navigate Southern California. I don't blame him, right? Who wants to drive in LA? Because he goes to bed early. He's an early riser, early to bed. So, he didn't have time to go hang with Jordan, even though there was some conversation about that. But he said Jordan's a little bit too much of a night owl, just based on the way Josh goes about things. And so, I don't know how much more educating you can do. So that's where I wonder, do you need to go the tough love route? But what does that exactly look like? Or just based on, just the way Jordan is, maybe tough love doesn't work in this case. But I don't know how much more they can lay out to him, how easy it is. That's fine, okay? Whatever you were doing, because, we don't even know, right? Was he high? Was he intoxicated? We don't have those details. We don't. But we do know, based on the initial police report, that he was asleep. And you laid it out, Judd, in a lane. And it no matter where it is, but in LA, high traffic, it can't happen. But it shouldn't happen. Just make the phone call. Yeah, make the phone call. They will come pick you up literally wherever you are. It's not that hard. Take advantage of the resources you have available. He has to understand that.
No, but he doesn't. He just clearly doesn't, unfortunately. Hey, we'll get to some other stuff here. Massive Timberwolves Summer League game tonight, too. We're tucking it away at 10 p.m., but the Summer League season is on the line. Maybe some Twins trade for whatever Doogie has left in his scoop bag here. But a shout out to Nicolay Law, the exclusive personal injury law firm of Score North Podcasts. Nicolay Law, led by our guy Russell Nicolay, is proud to serve the communities that they live in. So they're just, the people who work at Nicolay are just your normal everyday folks, the ones you see at the gas station, walking their dogs, whatever it may be. They just happen to be normal folks who have law degrees, and they're here to help you get the compensation you deserve after an accident. So to start your path to winning, go to nicolaylaw.com or give them a call at 1-855-NICOLAY. Hey, next week, it's 3M Open Week, Dex. Let's get it.
Yeah, July 22nd through the 28th. We got a great field this year. Sahith Theegala is going to be here this year. Lee Hodges, of course, is defending his title. You got Justin Rose, a very well-known golfer, making his first appearance at the 3M Open. You can get your tickets by going to 3mopen.com. That's 3mopen.com for tickets. Go check out where the golf matters. Go check out and watch the 3M Open by going to 3mopen.com for tickets.
Justin Rose won off the lead in the Open right now.
Yeah,
one off the lead in the Open right now.
2 under. Just saw
Also,
that Justin Thomas 3 under. Nice.
Yeah, there's some interesting names up here. Also, speaking of tickets, hey, the Twins back in town. You got some fun games the next few days. Brewers, Phillies, and then the Guardians in a couple of weeks. Maybe that's the series that swings the whole division.
8 left against the Guards.
Yeah, it's a big game. So, hey, your Soda summer starts right now. Second half of the season, Minnesota Twins. Twins.com/tickets. Sundays are kids' days at the ballpark, plus 612 Saturdays, $6 beers, $1 snacks, $2 food. Twins.com/tickets. Dukes, what else is left in your scoop bag? Where else you want to go here?
Well, I mean, on the Vikings. So I had the note the other day on social media, Chris Reed, former Vikings interior offensive lineman, off to the Houston Texans. The Vikings didn't make an effort there to bring him back. Nick Muse, tight end, had a knee procedure in June. He is ready to go. So he is ready to go come Wednesday. There's also a sense that Angel Van Ginkel is good to go, that this foot situation, it took too long, but he's in a good spot. TJ Hawkinson, though, you mentioned he was on the Barstool podcasts, and they were trying to get him going on, will he be back for the London game, which is in early October. And he was non-committal on that. So, I mean, it's going to be a little bit on TJ Hawkinson. In terms of Gophers men's basketball, I mentioned on Tuesday about Dawson Garcia that he was spotted. Actually, it's our guy Ross Brendel, promotions coordinator for Score North, who does a great job. Sent me a photo of Dawson at a bachelor party in a walking boot. That was late last week. So, did some.
Ross, jeez.
Is Roscoe stalking? I've told him not to stalk professional and college players before.
He's classic. So anyway,
did he get permission to distribute this photo, or did we just out him?
I think it was a social media photo. Maybe it was somebody's
Instagram Ross took a stalker
or something
photo
like that.
Looking in the window.
No, I don't think Ross was in the presence of Dawson, although
Brendel
maybe
PI.
I'm misconstruing that. But I think he captured it from somebody's social media story.
Okay.
But anyway, so I started to sleuth on what's going on with Garcia. So I mentioned it on Tuesday. So he did undergo a procedure on his left foot. That's why he's in this walking boot. Should be okay, although you say should. And, hey, we'll see how it plays out come November. But, by the time fall semester starts early September, he'll be back. The belief is he'll be back on the court, doing everything he is capable of doing. But right now, not so much. Needing to rest up, heal up that left foot. Nafisa Collier should be fine. If yesterday was a playoff game, she probably would have played. She'll be good to go in Paris, good to go when the Lynx resume play. It's a foot injury. Good to go when the Lynx resume play. What is it, August 15th or so? You mentioned the Wolves, Phil. So I finally got the PJ Dozier contractual detail. So it's a $1 million guarantee, clicks into a $2.6 million contract if he's on the roster on January 10th. So the Wolves have until January 10th to make a decision on Dozier. What this means is, they're still planting some seeds. We just saw Gary Trent Jr. come off the board. Now, hey, Damian Lillard is his guy, and he did have some bigger money opportunities, although on a multi-year, opportunity, with that situation. But, he's going to Milwaukee on a 1-year minimum deal, right? Gary Trent Jr. I mean, that just blows me away. But it's the new NBA with the aprons and the restrictions and all that. And so, hey, the Wolves will still make some calls. Could they stumble into a pretty productive player, especially you look at some of the point guards still available? Could they stumble into one of these guys on a minimum contract? Not something I would necessarily rule out right this second. Not that anything is imminent, but just based on the PJ Dozier contract, you can't just say they have 14 standard contracts. To me, they have 13. And if you want to say 13 and a half because of Dozier, fine, because he does have the $1 million guarantee. But they still have some flexibility on a minimum type deal, as that luxury tax bill climbs. But the right player presents himself and wants to be here, and can legitimately help them out, I think the Wolves are going to be open-minded. On Monte Morris, I haven't mentioned this yet. So right before free agency, he changed representation. It actually turns out there wasn't as much chatter with the Wolves as I initially thought. And once Eric Gordon left Phoenix, which I think surprised some people, especially here in town, it made so much sense. He's got the connection to Bradley Beal. They played together in Washington. So, I thought there was a very good chance Monte Morris, if you had asked me on June 10th, I would have said, yeah, I think there's a decent chance he's back on a minimum deal. Well, he signed a minimum deal, but it wasn't here. And it didn't get real far with here. And so, good spot. He's going to play more in Phoenix. But anyway, that's something I hadn't mentioned about Monte Morris, because I did mention about a month ago. I thought, hey, decent chance he could be back in a Wolves uniform. But no, it didn't get real far.
By the way, so I think this is accurate, updated information from Spotrac.com. The Timberwolves have the second most expensive team in the NBA going into the season. Phoenix is the most expensive team, and which means the Wolves also have the second most expensive luxury tax bill. So $205 million for the Wolves roster right now, and then $105.6 million tax bill on top of it. So they're going to be paying over $310 million as of right now for their roster. Again, Phoenix is the only team by a mile, by the way. It's like Phoenix and then Wolves, Phoenix gap, Wolves gap, and then it was the Warriors for a long time, but then they got out of the clay business, and they've just gotten a little bit more fiscally responsible. So, yeah, Glenn Taylor's going to be writing some fat checks here, because he's still going to be the owner for the start of the season.
GoFundMe time for Glenn. Glenn, don't be afraid to start one.
Yeah, we're still awaiting word on arbitration, and what does that, give us? It could give us that Mark and Alex win that arbitration case, but then can they get the 23 votes with the Board of Governors? It's going to be very, very hard. So, yeah, I think it'll be Glenn, right? Until I hear otherwise, I think it'll be Glenn writing those big fat checks.
It does feel a little quiet on the NBA front right now. There's always another move lurking in July or August, and you just wonder whether it's the Wolves or somebody else. What might happen?
I don't know if it'll be the Wolves. Lauri Markkanen, Brandon Ingram, those guys are available. But does Markkanen end up with the Warriors? Does Ingram end up with? I don't know who he ends up with.
Dude, if the Warriors if the Warriors swapped out old, deteriorating, cantankerous Klay Thompson for Buddy Hield and Lauri Markkanen, and put those guys around Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Kyle Anderson as kind of the Swiss Army knives, and then the other players they have, I kind of like the Warriors if they can land one more. People are kind of writing them off, but if you replace Klay with Buddy Hield and Lauri Markkanen, that's interesting.
Yeah, they also got DeAnthony Melton, did they not? It was a threesome of Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield. Was Melton the other free agent addition? He's had some back issues, but I like Melton. I just do. Now, how much are you giving up for Markkanen?
Yeah, that's a question.
One of those good young pieces is going to Utah, right? So you're subtracting. It's not just a bunch of future first-round picks. You're giving up at least one, if not multiple. I don't know if it's Kuminga. Would Utah even want Kuminga? But you're subtracting one of the young guys. We can debate how good they are, or maybe two, Moses Moody, whomever. Brandon P., the point guard who had a good rookie year last year, whose last name I would probably botch if I attempted to pronounce it right now. So I'm just saying, yeah, probably Phil, but I need to see what the Warriors roster looks like. But yeah, Lauri would help them. Undoubtedly. And I'm telling you, it still makes sense to me that Utah trades him. Utah should be all in on doing everything they can to have the number one pick next June for Cooper Flagg.
Yeah. There he is, folks. Darren Doogie Wolfson. A scoop session, little reckless speculation here.
And
A
Ross
couple
Brandel,
Twins notes.
they
will sign the prep pitcher, the 4th-round pick, Hill, the kid out of the Dallas, Texas area. It's going to be for overslot. I don't have the slot number in front of me, but it's going to be for overslot. They'll get the number 2 pick, 33, DeBarge, the shortstop from Louisiana Lafayette. That's about done. That'll come in a little underslot. They also will get Culpepper signed here pretty quick, or at least an agreement in place pretty soon. That'll be just right around the 21st pick slot. But, it's maneuvering, it's manipulating. It's okay, this guy under slot, this guy over slot. One of the outfielders they drafted early second day, he'll come in under slot. So, they've got this big pool of money, and it's just how they kind of space it out. But there really shouldn't be any concerns with the Twins signing their top guys. They probably won't sign. Sean Johnson told me yesterday, Twins VP of Amateur Scouting in charge of the Twins draft. He told me yesterday, unlikely to sign all 22 draft picks. So, maybe their 19th round pick or 18th round pick, they may not sign. But the top guys, there's not much concern on that front.
Hey, trades team, with the deadline 30th of this month, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, nothing like hot and heavy right this second, but Falvey, Levine, Adler, Zoll, I mean, they're working it. They're on the phone. I still anticipate at least one move for an arm. Now, is that just a reliever? Or can they somehow finagle, acquiring a starter? I mean, we can debate that they could use multiple arms, but yeah, I mean, I fully expect them to acquire an arm, but I don't think it'll pick up until 28th, 29th into the morning of July 30th. So as I can, tell, nothing is like on the cusp, but they're on the phone, just it's pretty quiet though. Like, I don't think anything is like picking up big time right in this moment.
Darren Doogie Wolfson, 5 Eyewitness News, and in your hearts every Tuesday and Thursday here on Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd. Dukes,
good to have you back,
weekend,
Declan.
Man.
I would have stayed
Thank
in
you,
Vegas through at least the weekend, but hey, good to have you back.
Honestly, 48 hours total. Like, we flew in Sunday nights. We got in like at 9-10 p.m. Vegas time, but just a full 48 in Vegas.
Yeah,
Sweet
it
spot.
beat you. Yeah.
Sweet spot.
Yeah, no, I get it. I was watching
48
Hangover the other day, so I understand it.
just a tiger in your hotel room. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Mike Tyson. All right, Dukes. We'll do it again
I don't
next
know
week,
what would
man.
be scarier. All right, sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, dude.
All right, boys. That's a wrap here. Scoop session. Next week, business picks up. Vikings training camp. Major League Baseball trade deadline. I think we've officially made it through. I don't think there really were doldrums this offseason, but whatever sports doldrums.
There were lists. That's what there were. There were lists. Some great lists.
It's nice when the Timberwolves play through the month of May, too. It really kind of shortens things. But
easier.
We'll see you guys for another Scoop session on Tuesday. Purple Daily, Flagrant Howls, Score North Twin Show, Judd's Hockey Show. Check them all out.